Do you guys remember Ninja Gaiden, the really fun and exciting action game using multiple different combos to take out your enemies with Ryu Hayabusa, the very iconic character in the Ninja Gaiden series? Well, what happened to Ninja Gaiden, guys? As a franchise and as just individual games, they were extremely exciting and fun, and we haven't seen a Ninja Gaiden, expansion or a new game in the Ninja Gaiden series for a long time. So let's talk about it. In an article that was written by John Canties of Gaming Bolt, it's been the better half of a decade since we've seen the fabled Ryu Hayabusa briskly jaunt across our television screens and computer monitors in anything new. Gaming has been forced to go without any new appearances of the unforgettable ninja that first eloquently jumped and slashed his way through arcades and living rooms in the late 80s. The NES version was, of course, the one that primarily caught on in the West, and it introduced millions of gamers, young and old, to a truly tough as nails experience that kept players addicted and coming back despite that fact that some of the harder sections weren't really hard for the right reasons. Even though it didn't have too much in common with its arcade-bound older brother, the version of Ninja Gaiden that was brought to the Nintendo Entertainment System quickly became one of the system's biggest hits and still maintains a fair amount of notoriety even today. So, obviously, guys, I personally did not play Ninja Gaiden on the Nintendo Entertainment System. However, I got into the series, of course, when it was on Xbox and when it came to, the Xbox 360, and that's kind of where really the series kind of ended off as well. Playing it on the original Xbox and moving into, of course, the Xbox 360, some absolutely incredible games. Unsurprisingly, a trilogy was forged from the infamy of the first game, and a slightly tweaked collection of all three was eventually made for the NES's 16-bit successor, with less damage taken from enemies and infinite continues in the third game. And this was a welcome collection that reached millions more gamers as the medium gained popularity in the 1990s. So with such a fantastic start to the franchise and so many more profitable and affectionately revered sequels and reboots that followed, why has this series seemingly stopped in its tracks? This is a very good question. As I mentioned, Ninja Gaiden had a great run in the 90s on Nintendo's consoles, but the series was just too popular to stay on one platform. It wasn't long before the franchise made a jump over to Sega consoles, including a Master System game and a Game Gear game, which were both their own special versions, with only certain sprites and levels from the originals being repurposed. A Mega Drive game was planned, but somewhere along the line it was mysteriously canceled, possibly to keep all Ninja fans with Sega consoles focused on the Shinobi series, which was seeing a healthy, steady stream of excellent games at the time, but it's hard to say for sure. It would be good while until a revival of the franchise finally landed on Xbox, which inspired its own series of games with Ninja Gaiden Black and Ninja Gaiden Sigma. These were all received quite well and brought back that perfect balance of fun and challenge that the originals were known for and translated it perfectly into a new generation of consoles meeting the new expectations of gamers at the time. So, Ninja Gaiden Black and Ninja Gaiden Sigma were where I came into this franchise and started playing this franchise very religiously, guys. Really enjoyed the game for a number of reasons. At the time, I obviously, really, multiplayer wasn't really becoming, wasn't at a place of where it is today. So single-player stories were great. And just the fact that I could sit there, play by myself, and just enjoy that hack-and-slash kind of style action game with a number of different, puzzles that you had to complete, and the absolute challenge that was Ninja Gaiden really kind of brought me back over and over again to the franchise. And so it started with those couple of games, and then of course as time went, there were times where I kind of fell off and didn't play as much Ninja Gaiden, but my passion for this game really kind of stayed there, and a lot of people's passion out there. I think that fire is still burning within us for more Ryu Hayabusa. Sequels to and re-releases of these modern games would continue well into the next decade before finally hitting a bump in the road with Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge that saw a Wii U, Xbox 360, and PS3 release. This would be the first time that would receive multiple rounds of criticism for its combat being too streamlined and watered down. Sure, that might have made the game more accessible to newer and more casual players, but it also was a disappointment to those who had been keeping up with the series for a long time and were expecting a certain amount of challenge that simply wasn't there. So this is true. When Razor's Edge came out, there wasn't as much challenge as people were kind of expecting, and I think that could have been the first thing that went wrong with Ninja Gaiden that you could kind of point to and say, maybe that's part of what happened in Ninja Gaiden. You'd think with all of the goodwill and fandom that have been built up and preserved over the last 20 years, people would have gone a little easier on Ninja Gaiden 3, but nevertheless, 5s and 6s out of 10s were rampant, and the game was largely talked up as a disappointment by some and around average by most. In a vacuum, average isn't a terrible thing, but for this series, it definitely hurt a little more. Although most would stop short of calling that game bad, that was a word that would be used soon, though, as the spin-off Ninja Gaiden Z would soon lower the bar even more upon its release in 2014. Ninja Gaiden Z had about a ridiculous of a setup as it could have had, with an undead ninja Yaba slaughtering zombies and traveling between dimensions and basically just creating a mess out of the franchise with his existence. So, Ninja Gaiden Z, guys, in my eyes, was a significant downgrade for me within this franchise. I feel personally that this was the dark ages of the game and of the franchise. You kind of had Ninja Gaiden 3, which was kind of like moving in this bad direction, and Ninja Gaiden Z, man, you started hitting almost rock bottom with those back-to-back games, especially coming off of the successes of course, the first couple of games in the franchise that were on the Xbox. And so it was very unfortunate what happened there, but what was to follow was really where I think things started to kind of pick back up slowly but surely. And I think, guys, when you really think about it, Ninja Gaiden started off really good, and then it kind of had its lull, and then, kind of started moving in a good direction once again, which we'll get to here in a sec. But I think that Ninja Gaiden isn't necessarily the only series that this has happened to. There's been so many games in the past. I've talked about Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed and so many different games out there, guys, that have had these issues. And I think another big issue for Ninja Gaiden was the fact that it was only a single-player story, which really hurt those sales and such, because there wasn't much reason other than that single-player story for fans to come back to the game. And we'll get to why I think that could maybe change over time, because when the game does end up coming back, which I hope is soon, maybe, just maybe, they'll have more modes and more ways that we can connect with the franchise. So, it even ended up on Games Radar's 100 Worst Games of 2014 list, which is an insane thing to say about a Ninja Gaiden game considering its roots in excellence. And this, of course, was Ninja Gaiden Z. If there has ever been a franchise that needed turned around, it's this one. Ninja Gaiden has already proven itself to be very timeless and rebootable in the right hands. So, I think it's safe to say we haven't seen the last of it. Ryu has made appearances in other games in recent years as well, so it's clear that Team Ninja doesn't want to give up on him just yet. Given all of this, I think Ninja Gaiden as a series is pretty safe. It's well known and generally well respected despite the last couple of missteps, and I think Team Ninja is probably doing the right thing by keeping it on ice for a little while. Patience is key here. So, look. In my eyes, guys, I truly believe that even though there was some lulls here, right, I think overall the Ninja Gaiden experience is very unique for what it is. And I think that it definitely deserves to coexist within the gaming universe. I believe, though, that it's a good thing that Team Ninja has taken their time. I mean, they're called Team Ninja for crying out loud. They obviously had to take something from the Ninja Gaiden series for their own name. So I think that what they're doing now is they're kind of trying to redefine who they are as far as a studio regarding the Ninja Gaiden franchise. And Obviously, they're working on other things. The Dead or Alive series and a number of other games out there. But I think that there's still truly they want to continue onwards with the Ninja Gaiden franchise, and they haven't done so. And I think that moving forward, guys, like what I was saying is moving forward after Z came out, I think moving forward now, we're moving in a direction where I think that we could really have some significant incline after this decline that they've had. And really, when you think about it, guys, I know a lot of people gave, Ninja Gaiden 3 a lot of crap over the years. To me, though, I didn't think it was a terrible, game. I thought that Ninja Gaiden Z was definitely not what fans really wanted. But I thought that if they kind of go based on, kind of go back to those roots and they start adding some new things to the franchise, right? They start adding, a multiplayer mode or some co-op modes and things of that nature. I think it's going to bring people back, and I think it's going to bring people back to the franchise after they just beat that single-player experience. Bring back making the game really hard to play as well. I even thought that Ninja Gaiden 3 was still, even though people thought that it wasn't as difficult as some of the other games, that's true. I still thought that it was, it was somewhat difficult. I mean, it wasn't, for the faint of heart. But Ninja Gaiden Z definitely was a real downgrade in that department. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you guys think happened to Ninja Gaiden? I kind of giving you my 2 cents on it. I think that what really happened was it was, having significant incline, and then, a couple of games kind of took it a little bit off course. And now the future, I think, is actually pretty bright for this series because we haven't gotten a new one in a while. And I think with some added game modes, I think it could really be back on track. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And for all the news and content, more so for the future of the Ninja Gaiden franchise, stay right here with Zero TV.